we spoke about the two versions of Rav and Shmuel's dialogue. Rav and Shmuel, the first version, where Shmuel seemed to argue with Rav about paying up a fast day. Do you have to pay it up or not? And Shmuel said, no, you tried, it didn't work, you don't have to pay it up. The next version was Rav and Shmuel both agree that, of course, you have to pay up a fast day if you skip it once for whatever reason that you weren't feeling well or whatever the situation was. You needed to, you couldn't fast that day, so you could pay it up a different day. So I was trying to connect it with this concept of a person makes a vow to or he accepts upon himself, makes a resolution to study Mishnayos for someone who passed away. So I wanted to connect it to this Gemara. I don't have any source really that agrees with me, but I was thinking that maybe it's a similar idea where a person, just like a person accepts upon himself to fast, and then it doesn't play itself out that way. So there's reason to say he has to pay it up. So maybe if a person accepts upon himself to study certain Mishnayos and it happens, you don't end up finishing it for the yahrzeit, for the shloshim, for whatever you accepted it upon yourself for. So I'm thinking this might be a similar idea where you would, the first version would be an argument between Shmuel and Rav if you have to pay it up afterwards. And the second version would be everyone would agree that Rav and Shmuel would both say that, of course, you have to pay it up and you still have to, you borrowed and you're paying it back, so to speak. You got to still finish it. So I'm thinking that it might be connected to that, this question that comes up. It's a very common thing, and I don't know if it's discussed by the halachic authorities, but it does seem like maybe it could be connected to this Gemara. The next Gemara was about the Taanis Chaloim, and the story was that Rabbi Shua Braid Ravidi happened to go to the house of Rav Asi, and they made him this delicious dish, which is a little unclear of what exactly it was. It was definitely calf meat, but it's either egla tilsa, like special calf meat, or it's the third child calf meat. This calf was the third child, or it might mean we had a third shot that David said that it's from a Rashi, I think in Shabbos, where it says that tilsa means it's a third of its growth. It's young. Anyway, so it tastes very good. It's a very fancy meat, and they made it for him. And they said, "Come, please taste it." He said, "I'm sorry, but I'm fasting." So they said, "No problem. Just borrow the fast, pay it up another day. What's the big deal? You'll fast a different day." So he said, "Sorry, but this is a Taanis Chaloim, and a Taanis Chaloim is a fast where you have to fast that day. It's a and it helps it. It fixes the problem like a fire. Like a fire catches on to flax, which is it consumes it. It's it consumes it very fast. So the same thing is the fast. It takes away all the negativity of a bad dream. So, and Rav Chizda says we have to do it that day. And Yosef says even if it falls on Shabbos. So so that seems like that's the end of the story. The Gemara just ends off. What do you do if you did fast on Shabbos? So it says you're supposed to fast another fast day for this fast day. And the commentaries seem to understand it. Most of the commentaries seem to understand that means you're supposed to fast the next day, which would be Sunday, unless there's some holiday on that day or like the Rosh Chodesh or or some other Yom Tov, then you can't fast. So then you push it off to a different day. But if it's but there, there is the Ritva says it doesn't have to be on a Sunday. I'm not exactly sure how they see it, why they're so convinced that that's the meaning. Lasev Tainisa la Tainisa means definitely the day after. Uh, I mean, I guess I guess maybe it's just assumed that way because you're not supposed to maybe uh, when you're capable of doing it, the next possible time you're supposed to do it. Maybe that's the automatic rule that it's one thing to push it off, that you could push it off, but you would be obligated to do it the next possible time according to these Rishonim. So it would make sense that that would be Sunday. Anyway, that's the way most of the Rishonim learn. Um, and that you would need to fast on Sunday if you fasted on Shabbos, but it is very valuable to fast on Shabbos. And we spoke about a number of things yesterday being connected to this idea. Number one, what about nowadays? Do we do Taanis Chaloim? So I looked in the Alter Rebbe Shulchan Aruch. He seems to say a lot of the things we said yesterday, which I was quoting from some other source. But actually, the Alter Rebbe seems to bring down a number of those things as well in the chapter, I think it's Reish Peches in Laws of Shabbos 288, I believe. And talks about there the number of things that we said. One of them is that question of nowadays, do people fast? Do we know what's considered a good fast? What's considered a not a good dream or a bad dream? So so these are some of the things it mentions there. Also about learning or davening the whole day. Mentions there that that's advisable to concentrate on your learning and davening on your ruchnius. And it also mentions there about the mitzvah of the meals on Shabbos. As we explained, actually, that I was mentioning, it seems surprising. How do you get around not having these the three meals of Shabbos? And from the wording of the Alter Rebbe, it seems like he's saying that the meals of Shabbos are an offshoot of Eineg, like we explained yesterday. It seems that they're an offshoot from the mitzvah of Eineg. So if for you this is considered your pleasure, so therefore you wouldn't be obligated in the Chachamim allowed you to basically have your pleasure in this scenario, that your pleasure is to get rid of your fast and to get rid of your bad dream. So that's the Shulchan Aruch about this, and about the laws of eating on Shabbos and not fasting on Shabbos, and so on.
Rabbi,
Yeah.
I have a question on the 10th of Tishrei. That fast this year fell on a Friday, which usually when the fast falls on a Friday, you either push it up to Thursday or push it up to Sunday. But this one fell on Friday, and we fasted on Friday. Now, from what I understand, that they fixed the calendar so it never falls on Shabbos, because if it did fall on Shabbos, we would have to fast on Shabbos.
So first of all, the other fasts just don't end up falling on Friday.
Yeah, sometimes the fast of Thanksgiving falls on Friday, and we
No,
push it to Sunday. Oh no, the fast of Thanksgiving we push it back to Thursday if it falls on Friday.
if it falls on Shabbos, we
On
push it back to
Friday.
Thursday, not on Friday. But it doesn't. It doesn't fall on Friday. But it doesn't say. But I'm just saying, like, there's none of the other fasts practically fall on Friday. It can't, because, for example, same Gedalia, it just can't work out that way. It can't be. It can't be on a Friday, because Loy Adu Rosh Hashanah can't be on a Wednesday. So if Rosh Hashanah you would need Rosh Hashanah to fall on Wednesday and Thursday for Tzem Gedalia to fall on Friday. So Leia Du Rosh means that fast can't fall. Purim never falls on Shabbos, besides for Israel, besides for the Shushan Purim. The Purim itself never falls on Shabbos. That means Taanis Esther never falls on a Friday.
Right.
I'm just saying the other fast they can't fall on a Friday.
But
Tisha
I
B'av
have
never falls. Tisha B'av never falls on a Friday, and if Tisha B'av never falls on a Friday, the same thing. It always falls the same day of the week as Shavas B'Tammuz. So the other fasts basically never fall on Friday. But you're
yeah,
right. It falls on Shabbos. We would not fast most of the fast. And there is a statement from the Avodraham that says that on Asara B'Teves, you actually would fast on Shabbos if it would fall on Shabbos. It never does.
it would never fall
It
on it.
would, but it doesn't
They
fall on
actually
Shabbos.
they actually work the whole calendar around that, so it'll never fall on Shabbos.
So that I don't know if they worked it around it, but it doesn't fall on Shabbos. I mean,
Yeah. It
you know what I
says
mean? Yes.
about the fast, it says Be'etzem Hayom Hazeh. And based on that, it says you have to fast on the day that it actually falls. So if it did fall on Shabbat, the 10th of Tevet would have to be, you would have to fast. And that's the reason why they move the calendar around so that it doesn't fall on Shabbat. So if it falls on a Friday, then you have to fast on Friday.
Mm-hmm. Uh-huh. Wow. Okay. Interesting. So that's a Ba'etzem Hayom Hazeh as a pasuk in Nevi in the Navi.
I believe so. That's where
Uh-huh.
that's where it talks about.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Something that I learned somewhere else, either one of the other shiurim that I attended.
Uh-huh. Okay, good. Interesting. Interesting. Okay. So we are now at the Mishnah. So the Mishnah says that if these fast days, the public three fasts, if they came and went and still no rain, so then Bezdin makes a gzeira for another three fast days. So we're not talking about the first fast days for just the scholars fast. We're talking about the community fast days. So we already had three community fast days, and that's the first three. Now we're having a second group of three, and the Bezdin is Geyser. They decree the second group of three fast days, and this second group of 3 days of fasting is more strict than the first group of the first community fast. In what sense? Well, that you're only allowed to eat while it's still day, but once the night kicks in, you're not able to eat anymore. It's a fast that's similar to Tisha B'Av. And you're also prohibited doing work and washing oneself and anointing oneself and putting on leather shoes and having marital relations. And because of this, we also close the bathhouses. And we spoke yesterday about the concept of what's called bein hashmashos, the in-between time, that there's a part of the day in Jewish law that is a doubt. It's a doubt if it's called day or night. It's the in-between, the gray area. And that gray area is between sunset and dusk. And that time is a suffix. So generally, we have a rule that on rabbinic laws, you can be lenient in something that's doubtful, because we're not 100% sure. The rabbis didn't obligate you in something that is unclear. That's not sure. So the rabbis, something that's a suffix. If you're not sure, you could be lenient. So sometimes when you have two opinions on rabbinic law, we could be lenient we could follow the lenient view because we're not sure if follow the strict view or the lenient view. It's a rabbinic law. You could be more lenient. So here I was mentioning to you, it seems surprising in the Mishnah that we follow the more strict law here, that you have to stop eating when it's still day. Like it doesn't even let you eat till dusk. I would think rabbinically you might be able to eat till at least till the stars come out. That's only rabbinic. But here the Mishnah seems to say, it's a rabbinic decree. The rabbis decreed you have to fast. Okay, So you fast. You have to fast from when it's from sunset. That's only rabbinic law. We should be lenient. So we explained yesterday, based on commentaries and other halachas, that we find the similar idea that in other places, that when you have a doubt that's contradictory, because here what happens is you are um, going to, let's say, eat during this gray area, this gray period. What about tomorrow night, the day after the fast, is also going to be the same gray period, the same gray area, where you would also say, logically, I should be able to eat now because it's doubtful if it's night or day. The only problem is they're both going to contradict each other, because if I eat tonight, and let's say tomorrow is the fast day and it starts tonight. So let's say I eat after sunset tonight. So I'll be assuming that the time period of after sunset until dusk, called Bein Hashmashas, that time period, I'm going to assume is really part of the day, because I'm eating. So I'm going to say, rabbinically, I can be lenient. It's called part of the day. But then what's going to happen tomorrow night? I'm going to say, no, it's part of the night, and I'm allowed to eat already, because it's the night after. It's already after the fast. In other words, this ability to rely on the lenient view will contradict itself in this fast, and therefore in both ends will contradict each other. In this scenario, we don't say you can be lenient, because you're going to end up with a contradictory leniency. So if because tonight I'm going to claim that it's really part of the day, and tomorrow night I'm going to claim it's really part of the night, because it's all rabbinic. I can always rely on the lenient view, but not when it comes to contradiction. So that's why some of the commentaries mention this idea that you can't. That's why you can't be lenient. Anyway, the Mishnah gave us all these rules that we have these strict, and the next three fasts are actually much more strict, and they're seemingly similar to Tisha B'Av. We'll see in the Gemara exactly more about that. Now the Mishnah says, and maybe we should start here, Avru. So we're going to start Avru Elu V'lei Nanu. We're the fifth medium-sized line in the Gemara, toward the end of the page. We're the fifth medium line in the Gemara, Avru. And if you have the art scroll, we are on page 12b. 12b3, the top of the page, 12b3.
For me, it's 12b2 on the bottom of the page.
You're right. I'm sorry. 12b2. Actually, there's two Avru Elus. I got tricked. I got fooled. It's really 12b2. You are correct, Ben. Ben is correct. It is the first Avru Elu, which is on page 12b2 on the bottom paragraph. Avru Elu. Avru Elu V'lei Nanu. If these fasts, which means the next three, which means altogether we've done 6 communal fasts, Avru Elu V'lei Nanu, and they were not answered, Bezdin Goizrin Aleihen Oid Sheva. Bezdin will decree upon them another 7 fasts. So these fasts, nothing happened. It didn't rain. So now we got 3, 3, and 7. And the Mishnah tells us, Shehein, that this is Yud Gimel Tiny Yois Ala Tzibur. It comes out to be 13 fasts are going to be now on the community fast. This is besides the first 3 that were only for the scholars. So there's 13 altogether. These 7 are more strict than the Rishonos, the earlier ones. The first 6, I should say, the first 6. These are going to be more strict. In these, we either blow the shofar. We'll soon see in the Gemara what it means. Crying out, if it refers to the shofar or anenu, but we do something called masriyan. and the Gemara will explain to us what it is. But these we do the Masriyan, and we are also noyal in the Chanuyos. We also close the shops. And when it says we close the stores, this is connected to the fact that we're not doing work. We close the stores. B'Sheni on the Monday, so there's 7 fast days. What days of the week are these 7 fast days? They're Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, Monday, Thursday, and a Monday. So these fast days on the Mondays, they B'Sheni Matinim Chashecha, they partially open it with when it's dark towards the evening, im chashecha towards the evening, in v'chamishi, but on the Thursday, mutarim nekavra Shabbos, it is permissible for Shabbos. They're allowed to open the doors. So this is the rules with these 7 fasts that came after you finish the first 3 group, the group of first 3, and the group of the second 3. Then you had these 7, and altogether it makes 13. Of course, one of the questions is why do we emphasize this concept of 13? Like, why does the Mishnah have to tell us? Altogether it's 13. I actually took mathematics in new addition in maybe 3rd grade. Why does the Mishnah have to add it to us? You know what I mean? Like what is the Mishnah adding and telling us? Altogether it's 13. Why? Why does the Mishnah have to do that? We all know you could add 3, 3, and 7, and you get 13, right? So we don't really need the Mishnah to tell us that. So commentaries try to figure out what could it be telling us. So one of the understandings is that it's telling us that you can't do more than 30. We can't prohibit the community. In other words, this is the maximum that we can obligate the community, as we'll soon see in the next part of the Mishnah. Avru Elu, yes.
Why can't you say you're trying to I guess activate the Shlosha Midot of Hashem?
Very good, very nice insight. One of the commentaries mentions that idea. Yeah, that's a very good good thought. I was planning on saying that after. I wanted to connect it first with the first answer, the next part of the Mishnah. But yes, good point. Well said. That it has to do with the 13 fasts are connected to the Yud Gimel Midas Haracham and the 13 attributes of mercy, and that's what we're trying to awaken. So very good good call. Okay, next the next part of the Mishnah. Avru Elu V'Leinanu. What happens if these 7 fasts were not answered? They passed and they were not answered. So Mamatin B'Masa Umaton, we decrease, we minimize in our business. Masa Umaton is like our business dealings and our commerce. Bibinyan Uvenatia, in building and planting. Be'erasin Uvenesuin, in the first part of marriage called Erasin. Kedushin is another term for that. And Nesuin is the completion of the marriage, which is called Nesuin, the final half of the marriage, which nowadays we do all in the same time. We do the Kedushin is giving over the ring, and this Nesuin is like the chuppah or the yichud room. So that's in today's weddings, we do it all at once, but it's considered both 2 different ceremonies. And it says we minimize or we decrease in these. Greeting each other. We also minimize. And the way we're supposed to act is kivnei adam hanezufin lamakim, like people that are pushed aside, so to speak, from that are pushed aside from Hashem, and like almost like excommunicated, but not that. There must be some term. People that are, you know, not
Ostracized.
maybe that's a good word, ostracized from Hashem. And hayechidim, the individuals, chayzrin umasanin, individuals meaning the scholars, they will continue fasting, chayzrin umasanin, but the community doesn't. There's no more fast for the community. They continue fasting. The yechidim, they continue fasting ad sheyetze Nisan, until Nisan departs, until Nisan is over. The yechidim continue to fast, and it says Yatza Nisan, once the month of Nisan ended, Yardu Geshamim, and rain falls, Siman Klala, this is considered a sign of a klala, of a curse. Shenemers, it says, Haloi Ketzir Chitim Ayoy. It says in the pasuk, the pasuk says, Haloi Ketzir Chitim Ayoy. It's pasuk in Shmuel Aleph. Behold, it is Ketzir Chitim Ayoy. It's a time of harvesting. Ekra El Hashem. I will call to Hashem. V'yitin koilois umatar. He will bring sounds, and meaning thunder and rain. And you should know that your evil is great. Asher asisem b'nei Hashem lishalochem melech, that you're asking for a king. So this is where Shmuel is rebuking Klal Yisrael, that they're asking for a king, and it hasn't. It's not the right time for it, and he's comparing it to raining in the time of katsir, of harvesting, which means it's not good to rain in that time. It would be like a curse. So that is the Mishnah. The Mishnah basically is telling us the next stage of fasting when it doesn't rain. The Gemara now starts off with a discussion of different like the Gemara starts off with talking about work. Why is work prohibited? And we're going to get involved in rinsing oneself, and with hot water, with cold water. So we're going to be discussing some of these laws that we mentioned in the Mishnah. So Gemara says, Bishloima kulhu. It is good, all of these above mentioned laws in the Mishnah, is behutainu, they have pleasure. So it's understandable that you're not supposed to have these during a fast day. Rechitza, washing oneself, sicha, anointing one, tashamita, marital relations. These are all things that are tainug, are pleasuresome. Aval malacha tsaru, but work, why is it prohibited to go to work if work is stress, it's painful? So the Gemara says, we learn it from a pasuk. Amar Rav Chizda, Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba. Chizda says in the name of Rav Yirmiyah bar Abba, Amakra, the pasuk says, Kidru tzah, kadru tzayim, kiru atzara. Sanctify a fast or prepare a fast, and kiru atzara, call people to gather together, and isvu zakenim, get the elders, the scholars to come and assemble them. So basically, the Gemara says, we see from these 6 words in the pasuk that the concept of a fast is connected to this word atzara. So the Gemara says, ma ka'atzeres. It's just like atzeres. The word atzara, they're connecting to this concept of atzeres, which in the pasuk referred to a gathering, but we're connecting it to the concept of a holiday, that it's prohibited to do work. On atzeres, ma'atzeres asur b'asiyas malacha, just like atzeres is prohibited to do work. So also Taanis, Taanis is also basiyas malacha. Also, a fast is also in doing work. Now, what is atzeres? So there are two holidays really that are called atzeres. One is Shmini Atzeres, and the other is Shavuos. Shmini Atzeres and Shavuos. So Rashi says the Gemara means both. That that it says just like Atzeres, which is Shavuos and Shmini Atzeres, you can't do work, and it's prohibited to do work. So also on a fast day, you should be able to do work. So meaning that logically, work maybe could be permitted on a fast day, but the Gemara understands from the pasuk about announcing a fast and organizing a fast and making the gathering for the fast. So that it involves a prohibition of doing work. So the Gemara says, if you really are learning this from Atzeres, that would mean that even at night you can't do work, and that seems surprising. The Gemara understands that the only thing prohibited the only thing prohibited, the Mishnah said that what's prohibited at night, only eating and drinking, because it like divides it. Eat and drink when it's still day. And then it's prohibited to do work and wash and all these other things. Sounds like it's only during the daytime you're not allowed to do these things, but the night before you would be allowed to. And that's very different than the holiday. On a holiday, you're not allowed to do work at night or by day. So the Gemara asks this question: Imam Atzeres Me'orta. If you want to say just like Atzeres, the holiday of Shavuos and Shmini Atzeres is Me'orta, is from the night before. So Af Taanis Nami Me'orta. So maybe you will say that also a fast day should also be prohibited in doing work from the night before. And that we don't see in the Mishnah. We seemingly understand that that's permitted to do work the night before. So Amar Reb Zera says, according to me, I understand it. Minei de Reb Yirmiyah bar Abba, from Reb Yirmiyah bar Abba, that it says, Amar Kra Isvu Zakanim, it says, gather the elders together. So the lesson that we're learning from Atzeres is a combination of connecting a fast day with Shmini Atzeres and Shavuos, and it's also connected to the other words in the pasuk that says gather the elders. And if we gather the elders and we connect it to Shavuos, so then we have two lessons. One is that it's prohibited to do work, but it's only at the time that you gather the elders. So the Gemara says, Isru Zakanim, it says gather the elders. Dumya da Asifa Zakanim. So that means the prohibition of doing work that we learned from Shavuos and from Shmini Atzeres is only similar to gathering the elders, Ma Asifa Zakanim B'yoim, just like the gathering, the assembling of the elders is by day. So Afsoim Nami B'yoim, also the fasting, the prohibition of work on the fast is also only by daytime. That's the way the Gemara understands this lesson. The problem that you have here is, what about eating? It's if you're telling me that the prohibition of work we're learning from Atzeres, and we're saying it's similar to Asifa Sekanim, so maybe eating also should only be by day and not by night. So why by food are we saying that you're going to be prohibited by daytime, and the other prohibitions only start the next morning? So the commentaries ask this question. Seemingly it's because the pasuk doesn't specify eating and drinking, and therefore the Gemara understands that it could be different, something along those lines. That the fact that the prohibition of work is not necessarily the same thing as the prohibition of eating and drinking. Anyway, it's discussed in the commentaries. The they bring that the word atzeres sounds like the prohibition of malacha. That it says next to Asifa Zakanim. That says next to the gathering of the elders, which means by day. The word soim, that it doesn't, that the word soim that refers to the fasting, that it doesn't say next to the words of Asifa Zakanim. That's the way they answer it, and therefore it's it's not going to be permitted to eat or drink at night. Yeah, the Teves tries to seems to say something similar to this. It's a little vague, the wording of Teves. Try to but this seemingly is the meaning of Teves, the bottom Teves here. Okay, so anyway, bottom line is that that's the explanation of why it's going to be prohibited to eat and drink, even though we have this whole lesson here that it's only by daytime. That's regarding working. Now, the Gemara does ask, the Ema, and let us say, mitiara from noon, meaning that maybe the prohibition should only be from the middle of the day, and seemingly the reason the Gemara is asking this question is because when did the rabbis gather together? They gathered together noontime. They didn't gather from the morning. They would gather from noontime. So so it seems like then the prohibition of work should be from noon. So the Gemara answers that one of the rabbis holds that they would gather in the morning. And let's read it inside of Rav Shesha, Braid Rav Idi, Messiah Leila Rav Huna. This is a proof to what Rav Huna supports Rav Huna's statement that that he says from the morning of the fast days they would assemble together and they would have this meeting. So the Gemara now goes through what went on during this gathering and what was the schedule of these fast days. So the Gemara says, Heichi Dami. How is this? Heichi Avdi. How is it done? So Amar Abai says, Safra at Palga from the morning till noon, Ma'ainin b'mili demasa. We would look into the matters of the city to see like what needs to be fixed, what issues there are, and if there's any area that deserves us to try to correct. And Rashi brings down if there's any gezel in chamas, if there's any stealing or forceful violence between them, and they try to look into anything that is on going on in that city, and check into what are the things that need to be worked on that we need to try to correct. So that's what they would gather together and discuss. They would have a community meeting to figure out what needs to be corrected, and that's from the morning until midday. Then Riva Diyama, and then a quarter of the day, Karinan Besifra, the Aftarta. They would read from the Sefer and from the Haftarah. And I'm not exactly sure why it took them so long, but that's what it says here, that they would read from the, they would spend a quarter of the day. Um, in other words, we did already half of the day was in the morning. Then a quarter of the day, they would read from the Torah and the Haftarah, which basically refers to, our, the way we daven mincha is, we have Vayichal and we have the Haftarah is read. Now, Mikan Va'elach, the other from there and onward, meaning the final quarter of the day, Be'inon Rachami, we ask Hashem for mercy. Shenemar, as it says, Vayakumu al Amdam, Vayikru b'Sefer Teres Hashem Elokeim Revias Hayoim. That it says they would read from the Sefer of Hashem, Torah, and for a quarter of the day. Revias Misvadim Shachim Hashem Elokeim, in the other quarter, one quarter they would confess and bow to Hashem, their God. So the day of the fast seems to be a full day. They would do half the day. They would be involved in community discussion of the community, and then the rest of the day they were involved in like rituals. Reuven, did you want to say something?
Yes. Am I on the thing? Tisha B'Av. Is that why it falls like that? That in the afternoon for mincha we could sit on the chair and not on the floor.
So the reason for Tisha B'Av has to do with the once the majority of the day has passed, so we're more lenient with the Avelos. In other words, which is actually surprising, because the actual burning of the Beis Hamikdash was towards the end of the night, right? But yet, when is our strict mourning for Tisha B'Av? It's the first part of the day, right? But that's the reason, because the day is the day of mourning. And once we take that day on as a day of mourning, naturally the mourning is going to be more strict than the rest of the day. So in other words, the day, we're commemorating the day, not the hour. Because if we would commemorate the hours of the day, we would probably make it much more strict, the last part of Tisha B'Av, the end, than the beginning, because that's when the Beis Hamikdash was burning. To the extent that some rabbis, and we'll see it later on in our tractate, that there was a rabbi that said we should really fast on the 10th, not even on the 9th, because the majority burned on the 10th. The whole fact that we fast on the 9th is sort of surprising. But anyway, that's the way it works, that we're connecting the day. The anniversary of the day is the 9th of Av, and we end up mourning the first part of it, because the day of mourning is always more, we're more lenient once we already did our mourning. Yes, Moshe.
Why not on the 10th of Tevet, though, we not sit on the floor and, instead of on the chairs? I mean, it seems like it's almost the intensity of it is almost just as bad, because they permeated through the walls of the temple.
Right. No, they didn't. They sieged. It was a siege. The 10th of Teves was a siege. Yeah.
But it still has there's still a similar, essence to what happened,
I mean, it was all in potential on the 10th of Teves, but the point is that it has a seriousness to it, as Reuven told us, and Ezra mentioned that we would even fast on Shabbos, but it also is not a day of mourning, because it wasn't destroyed yet. So it has a very serious nature to it. It was a very important day, a very significant day, because everything that was, when you have a siege, it's everything else is in potential. Everything there is potentially there, but then again, there's no mourning, because the mourning, there's nothing to mourn for. It didn't actually happen. Okay, so the Gemara continues and says we're now on page 13a, for those that didn't realize. 13a, top of the page. Epoch Anah, the Gemara asks that, how about, why don't they do the opposite and let them start the day with the Sefer Torah, the Torah, the Haftarah, davening. Then the next half of the day they could have their meeting about the community affairs, seeing what's going on in the community. So the Gemara says, "Loi salta daita." It shouldn't go up in your mind to think this way. Because it says, "The Eli yeyosvu," to me they should gather. Kol chared, everyone who fears, or is the charedim, right? This is where the word comes from. Kol chared b'divrei Elokei Yisrael, anyone who fears and is very serious about the words of Hashem Elokim, Hashem Elokei Yisrael, al ma'al hagoyla, regarding the ma'al, like me'ila, the ma'al hagoyla, the sin of exile. So let me just mute everyone here. Now, the pasuk continues, "Va'ani yoshev meshoimim ad leminchas ha'erev," and I am sitting meshoimim, like shmama, bewildered, until the sacrifice of the evening. And so the pasuk basically, what do we see from this pasuk? So this pasuk says that that everyone should gather, and then the pasuk says uksiv, and it says in the pasuk afterwards, uva minchas erev kamti mitainesi, and at the mincha, the evening offering, I got up from my fast. Ve'efrasa kapa yel Hashem, and I spread out my palms to Hashem, in meaning davening. So what we see here is that the second half of the day should be used for davening, and the first half of the day was for gathering together and making sure that the community matters are done, that things in the community are corrected, all the issues that have to be corrected, all the breaches and are corrected. So that's the understanding. So
Rabbi,
yes.
here Steinsaltz, it says the opposite. It says these verses indicate that the first one must deal with the issues of the community, and only afterwards engage in prayer. Isn't that the opposite of what you just said?
I hope not. I thought I said that, but I thought I said what you just said. But maybe I wasn't listening to myself. Okay. So the Gemara continues and says, "Amar Rapram bar Papa, Amar Rav Chizda." So Rapram bar Papa says that in the name of Rav Chizda, he says, "Kol shehu mishum avel," anything that has to do with avelus, with mourning, the going Tisha B'Av, like the 9th day of Av, the Avel, and a personal situation of mourning. Right? Tisha B'Av is more communal mourning, and Avel and regular avelus, person, relative passing away. So anything that has to do with these type of situations, usher bein b'chamin bein b'tzayin, would be prohibited for a person to wash oneself, whether with hot water or with cold water. Kol shu mishum tainug, but any of the fast days that are ruled based on pleasure, in other words, that the prohibitions are connected to not pleasure, one shouldn't have pleasure. So those type of fast days that we are limiting ourselves from pleasure, not mourning, but pleasure. So going Taanis tzibur, like a public fast day. So b'chamin osur b'tzayin mutter. Hot water would be prohibited. Cold water would be permitted. So the ruling of Rapram bar Bar Papa, the name of Rav Chizda, is giving us some clarity in what the rules are with washing oneself, taking a shower. Are you allowed to wash yourself with cold water or with hot water on a regular fasting, communal fasting? And of course, we know nowadays we don't prohibit taking a shower on communal fast days. Now, I'm not talking about Tisha B'Av, I'm talking about the other fast days. But what we understand is that when they would have communal fast days, especially when it came to rain, as we see in the Mishnah that we just learned, they would actually they would be prohibited in taking a shower. Now, that shower, would that be the same law as Tisha B'Av, or would it be different? So Rav Chizda says, well, it depends. Tisha B'Av is connected to Avelos, to mourning. When you're fasting for rain, that's not a time of mourning. It's a time of tshuva, maybe of repentance, of not pleasuring oneself. But it's not a time. It has to do with tainug, but not you don't have to do an act of mourning. So that's Rav Chizda's teaching that when it has to do with avelos, you can't take a shower even with cold water. When it comes to Taanis Tzibor, public fast, that would apply only to the prohibition would be hot water, but not to cold water. Okay.
Rabbi, question.
Yeah.
When it says Avel, you're translating it as Avelut. Does that mean the entire 12 months?
No. We're talking about the week of Shiva. Maybe there is a tradition among Ashkenazim, even 30 days, but it's not the 12 months. Definitely not the 12 months. There's it seems like Ashkenazic Jews are more strict in regard to like the laws of shleishim for a parent, that they follow a more strict rules. But the officially the law would only be Shiva. We're talking about the Shiva. Okay, so the Gemara says that maybe we could see this from the Mishnah. Amarav Idi Bar Oven. Rav Idi Bar Oven says, Afanan Nami Tanina. We also learned this in our Mishnah. It says, V'noyalin es ha-merchatzos, they would lock the merchatz. The merchatz in the olden days, you have to understand, they didn't have showers at their house. They didn't have inside plumbing. They would have bathhouses, and people would use the bathhouse, and that would be the way they would take showers. Now, the Mishnah said that we close the bathhouse. So Rav Idi Barovin says, this shows that they would be prohibited in hot water, but they would be allowed to use cold water, right? They would close the bathhouse. So he says, look at that. It must be that it's only prohibited hot water and not cold water, right? Because they would close the bathhouse. Bathhouse is where they have hot water. So Abaye answers back. I'm gonna Abaye. So Abaye says the ibet seinen usher. So if let's say it's prohibited to have cold water, what would you like the Mishnah to say if cold water is prohibited? So you can't take a shower, let's say on this public fast day. Let's say it would be prohibited, and not like Rav Chizda said. What would the Mishnah tell us if it's prohibited? You wanted to say we should lock up the river? I mean, what are you going to do? Build a fence around the oceans and the rivers? I mean, what are you expecting it to say? It could only say you close the bathhouse. That's the only thing you could do. You can't close a river. It's not like they have locks around the river. The bathhouse, you could close the door, you could lock the door. But you can't bring a proof from that it's permitted to take cold showers, a cold bath, because it says there's no other option. So I'm Rav Shisha Braid Ravidi. Rav Shisha, the son of Ravidi, he explains his father's statement. He says, Abba Hachi Kashul. My father, this is what his question was. And because he had a question in the Mishnah, he was able to come up with this understanding. Michti, let's see. Tanan, we learned in the Mishnah, Asur berachitza, prohibited to wash oneself. That's what it says. And then it says, you got to close they would close the lock, the bathhouse. Let me read it again. Tanan, we learned. Michti, let's see. Tanan, we learned. Asur berachitza, it's prohibited to wash oneself. So Nayalin esamarchatzois lamali. So why does it also have to say that you lock the bathhouses as well? It would seem that the prohibition of washing oneself would automatically be that they would automatically lock the bath. They're not going to open it and have no business. No one's going to be bathing. So obviously you close the bathhouse. So he says, you know why it says it? Elalav shmami na. Rather, we hear from this, it's coming to tell us that what's prohibited is the hot water that they have in the bathhouses. But of course, if you would wash yourself in cold water, that would not be a problem. So in other words, it's more of a it's hinting to us that it's adding those words to tell us that law, that it's allowed, that one would be allowed in the in cold water. So the Gemara then says that Lema Messiah, let us say that this supports Rav Chizda. Kol chayve tvilos, anyone who is obligated to go into a mikvah, toivlin kedarkon, can go into a mikvah the regular way, bein b'Tisha B'Av, bein b'Yom HaKippur, whether on Tisha B'Av or whether on Yom Kippur. Someone who is obligated in going to the mikvah on that day, they would be allowed to go in their regular manner, even on Tisha B'Av and on Yom Kippur. Now, the Gemara continues and says, "B'mai." What are we talking about? That they're going to immerse themselves. How? Ilema b'chamin. If it means in hot water, tvila b'chamin miika. Would they be allowed to be toivel in hot water mikvah? Is that allowed? Shu'uvininu. If you would have a mikvah, it would seem to be hard to get hot water for a mikvah, because in order to heat up a mikvah, they would need to put the water in a vessel, and they would then have to pour it into the mikvah. Now, the mikvah is the exact opposite. Mikvah just means that it gathers naturally. Now, if you put it into a vessel, that is called mayim shuvin. That would be shuvininu. That would be drawn. Elalav b'tzainin. Must be talking about that we are dealing with cold water, because we're talking about a mikvah. The chayve tvilos in a shachrina light. It says only someone who is obligated to going to the mikvah at that time, they would be the ones who would be allowed to go, but anyone else would be prohibited. So we see that you're not allowed to bathe for even in cold water on the days of Tisha B'Av and Yom Kippur, and the same thing would seemingly apply maybe to other Avelim, that the cold. So in other words, what we're saying here is that Rav Chizda said 2 points. One was about the laws of fast days that do not have to do with mourning; they have to do with not having pleasure. And we have other days of or minimizing pleasure, I should say. And then we have other days that have to do with mourning. And he differentiated between the two. And the first proof that the Gemara wanted to bring, and seems to have brought from Ravidi Barovin, that he brought a proof proving that that there is a permit to have cold water on. You're allowed to use cold water on a regular fast day, but the Mishnah was only prohibiting hot water. That
Rabbi?
was the first proof. The next proof, it has to do with the other part of Rav Chizda's statement about Avelos, which would include Tisha B'Av. That, or he says clearly Tisha B'Av, anything that has to do with Avelos, like Tisha B'Av. So he says clearly Tisha B'Av. He says that's prohibited even cold water. And that we seem to have a proof from a brisa that says all of the people that are obligated to immerse, they immerse the regular way on Tisha B'Av. And that means that a regular person would not be allowed to, even though we're talking about cold water. So that's the Gemara's proof at this point. Yes, Moshe.
Rabbi, if you're dealing with Avelis and you're dealing with dead bodies during Tisha B'Av, you would think that because people are tuma, that because they come in contact with dead bodies, that there would be allowed to take to wash and take a shower. I don't and then I understand that cold water on the other public fast days, but when you're dealing with Avelo, a novela or a dead body, that would be a day that you would wash for tuma and then fast.
Right. So we're not dealing with the tumas mace here. We're not dealing with the tuma of a dead body that we do need to be sprinkled upon the paraduma, and we're dealing with a person who avelos doesn't mean someone is impure from a dead body. That's not avelos. Avelos simply means that their relative passed away, whether they were there, whether they came to the cemetery or they didn't. Tisha B'Av, we don't get Tisha B'Av as well. We're not tamei from touching any dead bodies. We're mourning the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash.
Time of the destruction, during the time of the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash, there
some
were dead
people
bodies.
some people were tamei, some people aren't. But again, we're not dealing with that here. We're not talking about that time either. It's a Gemara, a brisa that was written many years after the destruction of the Beis Hamikdash. But anyway, the point is that we're dealing with someone who's chayiv to go to mikvah on a certain day. It's called mikvah bismana, mikvah in its time. Maybe we'll talk about it more. But we're going to conclude here, and everyone have a wonderful day. Sei gesund.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Thank you, Rabbi.
Everybody.
Have a good